Alright. Yeah, good, yeah, sweet. Me and all. Before we get into this, want to hit 10k by the end of the year. Want to help us out. If you enjoy the content, you know the drill. Click it, love you forever, all that jazz. Yeah, sorted? Cool. On to the video. So welcome back to my top 3 series where I talk about either the top 3 best or the top 3 worst, in my opinion, of each of the individual Doctor's eras. Now this one, I thought I'd already done. Today, we're going to be positive and we're going to talk about some of my favourite Jon Pertwee stories. I must stress, as I do with all of these, this is just my personal opinion. So if you happen to disagree, awesome. Doesn't matter, this is just my video. I'm not trying to tell you this is how you should think, this is the top 3 definitively. I'm just saying, yeah, these are my favourite 3. Let me know what you think in the comments. Usually how it goes or how it should go, but you'd be surprised at the amount of people who take it so personally that their opinion doesn't quite match up. Anyway, without further ado, in no particular order, let's start off with Spearhead from Space. Now the thing is, I have spoken about Spearhead from Space quite a bit in the last few months because I've been speaking about, like in my ranking Doctor Who series, the regeneration stuff. Obviously Spearhead from Space is the very first story to feature Jon Pertwee, and I think I even spoke about it in my last video in terms of like getting into classic Doctor Who. So to sort of repeat myself slightly from my previous video, this is a great jumping on point. Like, you don't need to watch the Hartnell and Troughton era. I mean, you should, but you don't have to. You can just jump on at this story and you don't really feel like you miss anything. You sort of get the general vibe of what the show's about without having to know everything beforehand. But that's not what makes Spearhead from Space such a great story. The fact that it's all on film, which is only a minor thing, and a lot of people won't pick up the difference between videotape and film. I personally do, and I think the fact that it is all on film really adds a new layer to how this story looks, which might sound mad because it is such a subtle thing if you don't really look for it, but because, like I say, I notice it, it really adds to the scale of this thing. Jon Pertwee's great in this. Like, for his first appearance as the Doctor, he's just straight into it as the character. He's clearly very different from Troughton and of course from William Hartnell, and he's very much his own incarnation, and I like seeing that from the beginning. I like when a Doctor's first story, you properly get a sense of this is who the Doctor is now. I know that there are parts of this story where he's out of action for a bit. It's not taking up the entirety of the story or to the point where it's detrimental to getting you adjusted to the new Doctor. Stories like the Christmas Invasion, I think they are detrimental in getting used to the new Doctor. This one isn't. The Autons, of course, make their debut in this story, and they are a fantastic Doctor Who villain. I mean, the scene with the shop window dummies breaking out onto the high street is one of the best moments in Pertwee's era, in my opinion. And this story really stamps its authority down and says, look, this is what Doctor Who's going to be like now. Obviously, they changed the format somewhat, so that the majority of the stories in the Pertwee era would take place on Earth. You already know this anyway. But you really feel like, yep, this is the formula now. This is what it's going to be like. Get used to it, and you know what, you do. I mean, for me personally, I actually quite like an Earth invasion story, so seeing that we're going to get multiple of them is already going to be a good thing. Everything about this story works. I just don't think there's anything inherently wrong with it. I wouldn't say it's a perfect story, because I wouldn't say any story is, but all the key elements are there. It's very enjoyable. It's paced incredibly well, actually, I will say this. And yeah, what more can I say? It's one of the best Doctor Who stories ever, in my opinion. Next up, we're going to go to the Sea Devils. Now, this is the thing. I have watched the Silurians recently, and I always used to say that this and the Silurians are pretty much a very similar sort of story. They hit all similar sort of notes, but I always did prefer the Sea Devils. However, just a quick note, the Silurians is a lot better than I initially thought. I did a review of it for Patreon like a few months back now, and I really enjoyed it. I still do have a lot of nostalgia for the Sea Devils. I mean, the soundtrack alone is so kooky and weird and alien and nautical, which a lot of this story is, to be fair, hence Sea Devils. And I am a fan of the sea and the oceans and boats and obviously monsters living under there, so this story is right up my street anyway. The only downside is this story doesn't feature UNIT, which is like a staple of the Pertwee era, but apart from that, it's got literally everything else, you know, an Earth invasion, political undertones, the Master, and I love Roger Delgado in this story. I think it was getting to a point for me personally, and I think I've said this before, during season 8, because he's in every single story, it's a bit just like, I mean, I like you and everything, but it's really not a surprise anymore. But the fact that they captured the Master at is it the end of the Demons? I think it's the end of the Demons. And then this follows on from that, like, okay, he's in prison now, let's see what he's up to. Obviously, he's not just going to be sat on his ass twiddling his thumbs, he's going to be doing stuff, and that's exactly what he's been doing. There's some really cool action set pieces in the Sea Devils as well, particularly the sword fight between the Doctor and the Master. I think the choreography in that is actually pretty good, and the lines of dialogue and the banter that they have between each other is really, really good, and it just emphasises how strong the relationship between the Master and the Doctor is. You can tell that, yes, these guys are mortal enemies, but there's a level of respect there, and there's so many scenes between the two of them where you really feel that. I mean, it's not just in this story, but I just really like how in this story there are moments where they genuinely do feel like old friends. The Sea Devils themselves, I think, is a fantastic design. I really, really do. It's a fairly straightforward design, but it's so effectively done that they are very believable. I mean, obviously a lot of monsters around this period, you can tell it is a guy in a costume, but with this as well, yes, but they are very much passable. There's so many really just awesome scenes, and the whole cast in this actually are really, really good. There's a lot of moments in this that are surprisingly tense as well, particularly early on where there's one rogue Sea Devil loose on the, what is it? Is it an oil rig? No, it's not an oil rig, but that thing that Joe and the Doctor go to, where there's those two guys. I really like the scene in the minefield as well, where the Doctor has got to go through a minefield and is also being chased by the Sea Devils. That is an awesome moment, and a really, I mean, that shot of Pertwee holding a sonic screwdriver blowing up these mines is probably one of the most iconic from his era. At least for me it is. This is probably the one Pertwee story that I like to revisit the most. It might not necessarily be the best if people were doing their, you know, top 5 definitive best. I don't think the Sea Devils would be there, but it's always been a personal favourite of mine, and for that reason there's no way I was leaving it off of this video. And then last but by no means least, and I actually think I've done this in timeline order, or at least release order, and that's the Three Doctors. The thing is with the Three Doctors, I'm pretty sure this was the first Pertwee story that I ever saw, and similar to the Sea Devils, purely based on like nostalgia and the fact that I've always enjoyed it, I couldn't not have it on this list. The Three Doctors is by no means the most profound or serious Doctor Who story. It's a bit of fun. Are there parts of it that make no sense or that they're a bit stupid? Yeah, absolutely. Does that mean it's a load of crap and you can't watch it? No, it's incredibly fun, and it is the beginning of what I think is one of the best double acts in Doctor Who history, which is the Doctor and the Doctor, Patrick Troughton and Jon Pertwee. I think if you're a fan of Doctor Who, particularly up to this point, which would be 1973, or was it 72? 10th anniversary, so I'm assuming it's 73, but it probably came out in 72. Either way, this story is just full of fan service, you know, seeing the Doctors interact with each other, seeing all three as well. The fact I've even forgot Hartnell was in this story. However, the dynamic between the second Doctor and the third Doctor is fantastic, but at no point do I ever feel like this is not a Pertwee story, if that makes sense. Don't get me wrong, I do think Troughton steals the show and is the major standout in this story, but at the same time I don't feel like he takes over the story. I know that probably doesn't make sense, but it does in my head. The gel guards are ridiculous. They are absolutely ridiculous, the way that they just bob along. However, Omega as a villain, another Time Lord, another bad Time Lord, is incredible. I really love Stephen Thorne's performance as well. Like, the costume is great, his voice is incredible, and that reveal where you find out that it's only his will that means he exists now, I think is brilliant. Plus, because it is Omega, one of the founders of Gallifreyan society, you find out a little bit more about the Time Lord's history, which again, I mean, you don't learn loads, but you learn enough to the point where you're like, ah, okay, this is interesting. I wonder what more they're going to do with that. Turns out not a lot, but it's what it is. It's still enjoyable to watch. I think it's a shame that it's only the Doctors that came back and not some of the other companions as well. But then again, this story already does have quite a big cast, so I'm not 100% mad at that, but I think it's just, I would have liked to have seen Jamie come back, for example, or maybe even Susan, someone like that. But would they have really changed the story or added that much to it? Probably not. This is a fun romp. Like, this is a Doctor Who story that you don't even have to think about it. Just whack it in the DVD player or Blu-ray or videotape, I don't judge, and just sit back and enjoy it. You know, you don't have to think about it. Just enjoy all the stuff that's going on. Just embrace how mental Doctor Who can be, because this story, it is mental in places. Like, there's so much stuff going on, but it never really feels out of place or like it's too much. Again, like I say, there are bits of it where I'm like, that don't really work, but that's only because I'm overthinking it. If I'm just sat there watching it, just enjoying it for what it is, It's brilliant. Is it the best multi-doctor story? Well, I did a video actually on the best multi-doctor story, and I can't actually remember if I said this one was or not. I think I did. I think I did say that this was. However, if not, for the sake of this video, it is the best multi-doctor story. How about that? Do you know what? I love the Brigadier in this story, actually. I think he's got some really underrated, proper funny moments. There's a moment, it's quite badly done, I've got to say. It's where the unit headquarters have moved and the Brigadier opens the door, and it's the turn and the face of Nicholas Courtney. Like, it's so pantomime, but I love it. Pantomime or pantomime? Actually, if you're not from the UK, do you know what a panto is? I don't know if they're a thing elsewhere. I could be wrong on that though. Anyway, I am wittering. In the comments below though, guys, let me know what you think. Do you agree with my choices? If not, what would your top 3 Jon Pertwee stories be? Whatever it is, let me know, let's talk about it. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like on it, subscribe for more. Social media and Patreon links will be in the description, as always. So if you'd follow me on any of those things, then I'd absolutely love you forever. But, till next time guys, you take care of yourselves. Goodbye.